Hey there, listeners. Welcome to the special quarantine edition of the podcast. of Record.
Quarantine edition.
If you were listening on the, or watching rather, on the video broadcast, you'll see our podcast studio is well enhanced right now with Lysol spray and Clorox wipes because we're staying safe over here at Graybridge Studios.
Safety first.
Safety
That's
first is most important.
That's our motto here, definitely. It's on the door. Safety first.
How do we feel about the poop emoji stuffed animal that's over there? That feels like it is probably...
Well, you can't get coronavirus from poop.
I feel unsafe.
Well, we should probably spray it down with Lysol. No matter
Oh, yeah,
what.
we should definitely Lysol
Yeah.
the poop.
So welcome. As always, we have the latest in marketing, ad, and hot takes on culture. Now is really a permanent feature
They are roughly related to
of
marketing.
this show.
Well, look,
Yeah.
I mean, marketing and advertising
are driven by culture.
is driven,
100%. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, we need to include that. We've expanded well beyond just being a marketing and advertising podcast at this point. We're generating the conversations that the nation is talking about.
I mean,
much
over
like
1
Donald
dozen
Trump.
listeners.
Much like Donald Trump,
Hear these
Bernie
episodes.
Sanders, and Joe Biden. All right, first up on the news, this should be, I think...
Wait, I didn't catch the joke. What was the joke about Sanders and Biden?
Oh, I was saying we influence what the nation's talking about, much like Donald Trump,
Bernie
Bernie
definitely.
Sanders,
Yeah.
and Joe Biden.
I mean, when
Yeah,
I tweet, the world listens.
exactly. Doesn't respond, but it listens.
It hears.
Yeah.
I can see the analytics.
For sure.
Or engage.
So I think Rebecca...
I can see the reach.
I think Rebecca will be excited about this first piece of news because it was something we talked about yesterday.
Ooh.
After we talked about it, Apple put out an official statement that reversed what I told you to do when you asked me. So,
Wait, we got to mention that Nipa is here.
hello, Nipa.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
I think I know what you're going to talk about, and I was very excited when I saw that too.
Yeah, that's what I put in Slack this morning.
Yes,
so,
I
yeah,
saw that.
That's what we're going to talk about first. So Apple has now officially given everyone the go-ahead to use Clorox wipes
Oh, heck
on your
yeah.
iPhone.
But what about your screen protector?
Nope, they say it's fine. to
On your screen
use on
protector?
all
But
parts.
they don't make all the screen protectors.
Doesn't matter.
How do they know?
They don't care about your screen protector.
Clearly.
Joe, you're asking too many questions.
Yeah, Joe, we're trying to kill germs over here.
We're excited about this
I
news.
think this is just a scheme by Apple to make you just degrade your phone quicker.
And that might, but they're giving the people what they want, so we're gonna go with it. But yeah, so a long-standing question has been: is it okay to use Clorox wipes and abrasive cleaners on your phone? Apple's official statement up to this point is that you should not use cleaning solvents or anything to clean your phones or screens or devices. They officially updated their statement on their website yesterday to say that it's okay to use Clorox wipes. It's
What do you think that meeting was like? Like the board, like they probably had several.
What I want to
internal
know is if
meetings at
Tim Apple was in
Tim
the meeting.
Apple.
Tim Apple.
Hey, speaking of, can you hand me one? I probably need to disinfect my phone right now. It's looking a little dirty.
We have Clorox wipes everywhere for you. Here you go.
Thanks.
Lenovo has also updated to say that you can use a dab of isopropyl alcohol to clean computer keyboards or a 50-50 mixture of isopropyl alcohol and water to clean LCD displays. But, of course, the computer needs to be shut down.
We
while
need
you're
like
doing
a
that.
sanitary pro tip stinger, like a little noise that plays.
What I need is a master class to teach everyone about all
Sanitary
these tips I
pro
know about
tips?
cleaning now. Yep.
Does this mean I can use this on my laptop too?
That's what it says.
Cool.
Not on the screen.
Oh.
But I have screen wipes in my office also made by Clorox that you can use on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next up.
All right, next story. Chili's, in a
Baby
desperate
back ribs.
attempt
Barbecue
to
sauce.
become relevant to younger customers and not just the Nance and Rands of the world, is buying ads on TikTok.
It's bound to work.
It
But
bound to
Nance
work.
and Rand are such a large segment of the population. How is that not
I mean, they're the
enough?
boomers. Like this is the de facto boomer restaurant.
Chili's is it,
Let me
and
make-
Olive Garden.
let me
Olive
make a case
Garden
for
is
Chili's.
a real equal segment.
I actually
there,
think
too.
Chili's has two groups.
Okay.
I think like young 20s, like college kids, 21 to 23, are really into Chili's because
Are
of those.
they?
Dude, those 2-for-1 at Chili's.
But they're so weak. They're weak drinks.
You don't know that when you're 21.
They're weak, and the food is actually more expensive than you think.
It is. It's not cheap food.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, I can go to my favorite Thai restaurant and get a 10 times better meal for the same price it cost me to go to Chili's.
Those aren't comparable.
Shut up.
Chili's in my Thai restaurant. What are we could go to Chili's or we could go to the Thai restaurant.
Literally any restaurant that I frequent, I
Has
can do the same
anyone
thing.
ever like in their consideration set of where to go, been like Chili's or the Thai place.
Well, to me, because they're similar in location.
It's like Chili's or Olive Garden.
right? I got to go north to get to both of them from my
You're
house.
right,
That's
Longhorn.
true.
Yeah. Longhorn's a long way away from my house. Well, I mean, do we want to talk about the actual TikTok part of this, or are we just going
Oh yeah,
opine
talk
on
about
sorry,
TikTok.
Chili's?
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
So
The
last
news,
week,
sure.
Chili's joined. This is out of Digiday. Last week, Chili's joined TikTok with a hashtag challenge, Chili's birthday, to celebrate the restaurant chain's 45th anniversary. Marketers of the chain restaurant are hoping that doing so will not only catch the attention of Generation Z consumers that the app is popular with, but also get those consumers to suggest going to Chili's for the night, and in turn, the tactic could increase sales and
Well,
restaurants.
they could have a
business.
chance to win one of three $313 gift cards.
Why
in the
are they
restaurant.
$313 gift cards?
I don't know.
Oh,
March
it's on March
13th.
13th.
Yeah,
That's-
313.
I guess that's their birthday.
Yeah.
That's
So
a lot of Chili's.
that's a lot of Chili's. It's not quite as much Olive Garden as the unlimited pasta pass, though, which has been a wild, raging success for the last few
All right.
years.
So I mean, will it work? Expectations. Does this work?
No.
Well, quick comment. $313 will at least get you drunk, even if the drinks are weak, right?
That's a valid point, yeah.
Unless you're a raging alcoholic.
that is a valid point.
Will it work? I don't think it'll hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll hurt.
All they need to do is be really right once. I mean, look what like
Well,
middle class
What
fancy's
this
done for like
needs-
Chili's.
Yeah, I mean, what this needs is to be like 1/10 of a rollout strategy to try to reach new consumers. So only one of those 10 things have to work. If they're
Yeah.
putting all their hopes and dreams on TikTok, it's
Right.
not,
Not
going
gonna
to go
work.
well. Yeah.
Right.
They've declined to say how much they're spending on their TikTok strategy.
$15.
Yeah.
I mean, if it does nothing but at least get people in the door and realize, like, I'll be honest, last time we went, I was shocked that they came out with like new, healthier
Well,
options.
My
'cause when
wife
I
is a
think
fan of Chili's. I am not.
Well,
but-
restaurant, you got to think about how restaurant selection works. It's about consideration set and what is in just your natural list of restaurants. If I ask everyone in here, oh, hey, where do you want to go to eat? Most people are going to say the same 4 to 5 restaurants.
Mhm.
And so the goal with this marketing is if you can inject your brand into that consideration set for a younger consumer that may not be completely set in their habits,
Mhm.
you might end up in like the top 5 or 6 restaurants they just think of about, oh, where do you want to go to eat? And that's how you win in the restaurant game for the most part.
So
'Cause
I
most people
will-
don't plan meals weeks in advance. They,
yeah.
where do you want to go? I don't know.
I will say this: the last time I went to a Chili's was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, because my wife really wanted Chili's. We went. It was a Wednesday night, and there were a surprising number of tables of kids that appeared to be between like 16 and 20. That my guess is they had probably just left Wednesday night church and come as a group
Yeah.
to Chili's, because it was 8 to 10 people. They didn't seem old enough to drink. There were no drinks at the table. It was all
Sweet
Cokes
teas all the
and
way
root
around.
beers, and yeah. So, anyways, for what it's worth.
I haven't been to Chili's. I don't in like decades.
Sounds like we're
so,
having a group lunch tomorrow.
As far as I remember, their vegetarian options were very limited. So
Yeah, that seems pretty on brand for
not-
Chili's.
Yeah.
interested in that.
I
But
think it's changed a little bit.
yeah, I'm sure it has.
Here's our veggie salad that has a meat-based dressing.
But a lot of times choosing restaurants is based on what the kids in the family want to do. And so if they're targeting kids through TikTok,
Oh, yeah.
and it's top of mind for them,
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to do
like
that.
your 17-year-old's like, Mom, I want to go to Chili's for my birthday.
Yeah.
wanna
All
go-
right, Braxton.
I want to go to laser tag for my birthday.
What's next?
Next, we're going to talk about how much Americans trust Facebook, Google, Apple, and other big tech companies. So this is out of The Verge from their 2020 tech survey. The big top-of-line data point here is that 72% of people say that Facebook has too much power.
I mean, that's basically everybody. What? So my favorite question from that is if you scroll to the bottom of that article, Matt, there's
Yeah.
one about, and I think it's the most telling. Which
So this is the
companies
question,
would you?
Would you be disappointed if these companies disappeared?
All right, let's go roundtable on this.
Okay.
Tech
so-
company you'd be most disappointed if it went away.
would you like me to give you the choices?
Yeah, I want
since there's a
choices.
limited number of choices. Google, Amazon, YouTube, Microsoft, Netflix, Apple, Facebook, Instagram, Slack, and Twitter.
I can tell you what would be my last.
YouTube.
I think
Kyle's at YouTube. What are you?
Apple for me.
Apple is what you would be most disappointed if it went away?
Mhm.
Okay. Kyle, yours is YouTube is most disappointed? Okay. Nipa?
Probably Apple. I would like to say Amazon, but they have so many weird like work employer issues going on over there that I always wonder what's happening. And also it does feel like they have like way too much power at this point.
Sometimes what's happening over there is a can of bear spray is exploding and 20 people have to go to the hospital.
Oh,
The
God.
process of replacing everybody with robots anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And then so yes, they're trying to find those brick and mortar grocery stores that don't have cashiers and it's just that makes me a little nervous. So I think probably Apple.
Okay. Joe.
You know, if it's everyday use for me, it's Apple probably. Number 2 is Amazon though.
Mm-hmm.
I use Amazon a
Amazon?
lot.
Mine
Well-
probably is Amazon.
Really?
Yeah.
See, you're an avid Amazon
That's where all this stuff
user.
came from.
It is.
That's true. See, mine, I only order like one-off things that like people will recommend in the moment
Yeah,
where I'm
see,
like, oh, let me just
I-
order it right now.
I
But
have basically eliminated my need to go to Target except for very specific things. Well, in
you should
Target,
never eliminate your need to
well,
go
but
to
that's
Target.
the thing is Target's a trap. You go in there for one thing and you end up spending $250, and I've basically eliminated that by subscribing and saving all of my like paper towels and toilet paper and weekly.
Right.
I find
like,
a lot of
replenish
good random
things.
books on Amazon,
For
which
sure.
I really appreciate.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you think? You have your personal opinions. What do you think the top rated? Rebecca's trying to steal my screen
I
and
can't
get the
see
answers.
that. You overestimate my vision.
You should go to the eye doctor. All right. So, what do you think the top disappointment would be for people?
Apple.
Okay.
Google.
Yeah, maybe Google.
Joe. Well, you've seen it.
I've seen it, so
Yeah.
I know.
So the answer is, in
Googs.
fact, Google.
Yeah.
85% of people would be
Like
disappointed
Slack.
if
Slack
Google
was
disappeared.
last.
No, Twitter was last.
Oh,
actually.
Twitter was
Yes.
last. Yeah.
Slack beat
Burn.
Twitter by almost 10 points.
Good job.
Number 2 was Amazon at 81%. Number 3 was Kyle's
Well,
pick.
The
YouTube.
difference is Twitter is aggressive and Slack is just passive aggressive Twitter.
That's not true.
That's not true at all.
True.
No, that's not true at all.
Slack is for conversation.
Slack is
Twitter
your-
is not for
with the
conversation.
people you work with. When
Yeah.
you want to passively aggressive, remind them
Well, I'm
that they
not
never check
tweeting
their
at
Slack.
anybody I work with.
By
though.
just slacking them that they never check their Slack.
Joe says that because he's the only person in our office that fails to use Slack
So
frequently.
he only uses it when he's trying to be passive aggressive
Yes.
to colleagues.
No, when I use it, I expect immediate response.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then I got to storm into my office like, you didn't check Slack.
Number 3 was YouTube at 76%. Number 4 was Microsoft at 75%. I don't think I would at all.
God,
be
I would
devastated
Microsoft
if
not be on
Microsoft
there.
went
There's
away.
Kyle, fist in
Oh,
the air.
gosh.
Kyle, those
Really?
is Bing going away a big problem for you? Bing search. Bing
Kyle,
gone?
see me in my office later.
You use a lot of Microsoft PowerPoint, do you?
Ask Jeeves.
Huge Edge, yeah.
Edge.
Perfect. That Edge browser is where it's at.
Yeah.
Number 5 was Netflix at 70%. Apple was all the way
Oh.
down at 66%.
I just think Apple users has a percentage of the population isn't super high, so it makes sense that they
that's
would
fair.
be that low.
Yeah, that's fair.
Android then on there?
Well,
That's probably
it's
Google.
probably getting included in Google, but yeah, I mean,
Would you miss it if your crappy phone went away?
Oh no.
No, I only miss if my good phone went away.
if your exploding folding phone went away, would you be at all upset about it?
If your phone didn't explode anymore.
Facebook was down at 55%, Instagram at 43%, Slack at 42%. Instagram's only 1 point higher than Slack.
I would honestly
That's
be
rough.
relieved if those platforms
Yeah,
went away
like
tomorrow.
that's kind of rough. Twitter
Well,
was
like
at
Twitter is
33%.
outrage. That's the negative emotion. But Instagram is envy. And that's the negative emotion you get there.
There's a couple of other interesting little bits of trivia in here. What do you think the percentage of people who know that Google owns YouTube is?
like
Ooh.
10?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's
Minimal.
low.
Interesting. It's actually 47%.
Oh, wow.
Shocked.
Oh, that's
Mm.
good.
What do you think the percentage of people know that Facebook owns Instagram is?
15?
25.
30.
8.
What was yours?
80.
Okay. No one was really correct. Rebecca probably got closest. It's 38% of people know that Facebook owned Instagram. What about Facebook owning WhatsApp?
4%.
17.
29.
But it's not even 29% of people know what WhatsApp is.
Oh, I'm sorry. You must not be including China.
That is U.S.
You don't know that.
I think when I read it, it was U.S.
All
Whatever.
right, here's a big one. How many people know that Amazon owns Twitch? I think this stat is BS, but okay.
8%.
Yeah, it's got to be like low.
It's
under
12.
10.
I think that's probably 9.5.
How
Yeah,
would they
I
ask
don't
this
think that's,
question?
like-
Was
I
it
mean-
like, did you know Amazon owns Twitch? Yes
Yeah.
or no? Or was it like, what company is owned? Like, which of these companies does Amazon own?
Yeah, I'd like to know that because I think that number is
Yeah,
high for people
I
who
think
know
it's high
about
too.
YouTube and
I think
Google.
it's high, given that we literally have to clarify that, like,
clients all the
Facebook,
time.
every single one, like, people are
Yeah.
spending significant money, oftentimes don't realize Facebook, Instagram, Google,
Before
YouTube.
we move on to the next one, I think it is interesting to point out one of the other stats that I said at the top of this story, and that's that 72% of people say that Facebook has too much power, but also 51% of people say that Google and YouTube should be split into separate companies. So this is not over for the tech companies.
How many people said Amazon? Because Amazon's the big one. Amazon's the one that
Yeah, I
actually
think
physically
The problem is I
controls
don't know
things.
what you would break up Amazon into, right? Like they gave a specific option for breaking up Google and YouTube. Amazon just absorbs everything.
Well, I would break the space empire from the Earth
Yeah.
empire. Because you should be able to
Obviously.
control like everything on Earth and
well, we
everything
have
in
Space
too,
Force now, so it's good to go.
which is going to be run by Amazon.
Yeah. 56% said the government should break up tech companies if they control too much of the economy. What's unclear there is what people define as controlling too much of the economy.
What people define as economy
Yeah.
or control.
All right, so
too
final
much.
story in the news roundup before Joe delivers his hot takes on the topics that he personally selected for us to talk about in a deep dive segment. Is that Super Mario Brothers is the video game that fans want to see in theaters.
I mean, people realize that
next.
was a movie in 1991, right?
It was a movie.
It was really bad.
It was
was so
amazing.
I remember when I
It
was
was
like 6, I was
amazing.
like, man, Goombas are
Yes.
small. They're not tall.
A film adaptation of the 1983 video game was the top choice for all adults in a poll, and this is at a Morning Consult.
Animated or live action?
Ooh, I don't know. Sonic was a surprise success at the box office, bringing in more than $70 million in its opening weekend and
Oh,
has
and I guess
grossed more than
Pokemon.
200 million. Detective Pikachu. Yep.
Yeah.
The only
that
one-
came back.
Here's what I love. Grand Theft Auto is 34%
That would be an
among
NC-17,
everybody, but
yeah.
45% among video gamers.
Yeah, that would be an NC-17 movie for sure.
That
Um,
would be an offensive movie.
Mario Kart second. A Mario Kart movie would be interesting.
What if we took Ford versus Ferrari
It's a
but
me,
made it about
Mario.
Mario Kart?
Ooh.
I think that would
that'd
be
be a
amazing.
good one.
But
yeah.
like kept the same acting team. So we had Christian Bale and Matt Damon, but it was Mario Kart.
Written by Aaron Sorkin. So there's a lot of walk and talks through the pit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enzo Ferrari is Bowser.
Accurate. I like that.
So all adults, 44% of all adults want to see Super Mario Brothers
It's been done.
brought to the big screen. Apparently, it wasn't done well enough for all.
It
of
was
these
not done
people.
well.
I mean, what are the ages of people polled? Were they alive in 1991 when the original came
It
out?
just says 2,200 U.S.
It
adults.
just says
surveyed.
adults. Yeah.
Okay.
37% want to see Pac-Man brought to the big screen. That seems like it would be a short movie.
Wow. Beep, bow,
Beep, beep,
bow.
beep. Mario Kart 37, Donkey Kong 36%, Disney. You should be listening to that one because that sounds like a Lion King crossover waiting to happen right there.
No, Grand Theft Auto is Disney for
Grand,
sure.
Theft,
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto is 34%.
Grand Theft Auto is like a New Line Cinema.
Or Showtime.
Oh yeah, Showtime, late night.
29% of women said they would be
Stars.
interested in a film adaptation of Tetris.
It might be soothing. Just to watch the pieces fall. And as soon as they fall in the wrong spot, then you feel really miserable.
And like, what's the climax of the storyline?
There is no climax of this story. I mean,
Make
When
a
something
square.
falls out of place.
some groups were also interested in Super Smash Brothers and Call of Duty.
Duty, yeah.
I feel like Call of Duty
That
is,
was called Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Well,
that
Call
ex-
of Duty, I mean, depending on which version you go with, could be Zero
Every-
Dark 30.
yeah,
I mean, there's a
everything. It's
lot
been
of
made.
military
You're
movies.
good.
American Sniper.
I always liked watching people play that game Uncharted. That felt like Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Like I feel like that would be amazing too as a movie.
Tomb Raider did not do that well.
No, and they made like 5 of them.
They did make a lot of them. Resident Evil, they're still making Resident Evil movies.
I don't know why.
They go straight to video. They don't premiere in theaters anymore. All right, Joe, what do you want to talk about on today's cultural deep dives?
So we got 2 things. We have woke marketing and state of millennials. So we'll start here with the woke marketing. This is out of CNN.
To clarify, is that designating a 51st state to put all the millennials in, or is that the current focus? Of
like a State of the Union, but for
But for
millennials.
millennials, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
a research project out of eMarketer.
Gotcha.
But we'll start out of CNN Business. Taking a stand on social issues is risky. The world's largest advertiser did it anyway. As the world's largest advertiser, Procter & Gamble is skilled at convincing consumers to buy everyday products like Tide laundry detergent, Pampers diapers, and Charmin toilet paper. Must be a great week for them. But in recent
Who
years, the
makes
company
Clorox
has used
wipes?
its clout as a marketing powerhouse, not just to tout its own brands, but also to promote social messages about gender equality. It's an ad strategy that comes with risk, but even so, the company isn't backing down. In the last year, Procter & Gamble has released ads for Secret deodorant, pushing an equal pay for women, a controversial ad for Gillette, tackling toxic masculinity, and a short video series about equal division of chores in the household. So the question I want to go over with this is this a good marketing strategy? We've talked about this tangentially on the podcast before. Marketers are picking up in consumer surveys that consumers prefer brands that stand for something. I have a contention on this that they are misreading the public when they hear that brand should stand for something, and they're interpreting a more political and a more social angle on that than what consumers actually mean by it. And that in focus groups, you're getting a bias based on the time period we live in where people feel like they need to have more of an opinion or more of an activist stance than they actually do.
Sure.
And so when you get them in a room together, they feed off each other.
To answer the previous question, Procter & Gamble does in fact own Clorox, so they have lots of sponsorship.
What about Lysol?
They do
No,
not
we
own
get-
Lysol.
they-
Lysol and Clorox
yeah.
are competitors, two totally different companies. Lysol is owned by Reckitt Benckiser.
So you're saying by using this, I can support gender equality and
Kill
stay
flu
disease-free?
viruses. Yeah.
amazing. So I just want to do a roundtable on that. Good idea or bad idea to go as deep as Procter & Gamble has, and they are a mass market company. They need like 90% of Americans to buy their products. Their biggest buyer is Walmart. Good idea or bad idea to go in the direction they've gone?
I think it's a good idea. This is Nipa again. I think it's a good idea. I think that the bigger issue is in like CNN Business or on Twitter, people make a big deal about it, but the people going to Walmart to buy these products are just buying the products. I don't think that they notice the big changes in packaging. I don't think they pay attention to that.
Because they're not on Twitter.
They're not on Twitter, and I think that's where everyone's getting really angry about this.
So your idea would be that basically by doing it, they get all the positive attention from, the progressive, like woke crowd,
Yes.
and they get good media coverage. But in fact, like most of their buyers don't actually know.
yeah.
So it doesn't really impact them. They get all the upside, but none of the perceived downside.
I don't think there is a downside. And I think that being inclusive of these groups opens it up to more opportunities for different markets.
Do you think for a mass market product that has to sell, you 90% of people have to be willing to use your product, that it's smart to go niche on something? And we know from polling that about 8% of Americans identify themselves as, progressive activist, or where this would be a really appealing thing to them. So round it up and call it 10.
98% of Twitter identifies itself
Oh
as
yeah, sure.
activist.
Yeah, so it's a great Twitter marketing
Not necessarily
strategy.
progressive, but
Well,
activist.
So best example, we just talked about all these tech companies that own other tech companies. How many people know Procter & Gamble own all of this stuff? Like, I mean, you might still buy
Right.
Clorox wipes, but you may not buy tampons or whatever.
I don't buy tampons.
Well, yes. But you would still be purchasing their product.
Yeah, and not realize it's
If you have a
under
wife
this
and a
massive
daughter, you
holding
may be
company.
buying them pretty soon.
True, good point.
Right. You can say that you don't support Procter and Gamble,
Amazon, bro.
but do you actually know the extent to which that is?
I do.
Right. But the standard consumer.
Well, you know the extent for specific brands. I guarantee you don't know all of them.
Well, this doesn't say Procter & Gamble on
There
it.
is nowhere on that Clorox container that says it's owned by Procter & Gamble. I had to look it up on the internet to see that the Clorox company, which is the only company you'll find on that box, is owned by Procter
And they were a recent acquisition too. They were in the last 7 or 8 years.
Well, is that part of the strategy, right? Like Procter and Gamble is being controversial, but then like specific brands that are not branded there, so you don't even know.
It
like,
has to
keep
be
in
part
mind,
of the strategy.
They do a lot of this stuff under the brands. So
some of it, right?
Well, the toxic masculinity was a
Right,
Gillette
Gillette.
ad. The
Well, none of it's branded as
taking
Procter
the
and
female
Gamble, yeah.
symbol off of the tampons was Always brand. So they're doing a lot of this on each of their individual brands.
Right.
Now you're right. Do people realize that those brands are related under the same? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would say like, oh, I'm so offended by this that I'm not gonna buy Clorox wipes anymore. I don't know that I would reach that far.
And if you look, they don't actually do any of this with like their cleaning products, right? Like they're doing it with their personal hygiene, personal care products.
Well, specifically products that are tied to at least a perception
Of
of gender
gender,
usage,
yeah.
right? Like the Gillette razors are basically the exact same razors, but they're branded as either the Gillette women's razors or the Mach 3 razors, depending on who they're trying to sell to.
So, I mean, and this is an important thing, right? Because this is the biggest advertiser in the world. Their ad buying supports most of the mass media in the country, but globally as well. I mean, they're a global company. Would it have been a smarter idea for them to develop niche products targeted specifically at, say, a razor for transgender men? Would they have gotten more credit for developing a product specifically for that group?
Well, no, I don't think so, honestly, because I think that those groups tend to be marginalized already.
Mhm.
And so then creating a specific product just for them can feel a little bit more like marginalizing
Mhm.
instead of actually including them into the broader industry. Like we all use the same razors.
Yeah, which is interesting because that would be the opposite of the way most consumer products are going, right? Most consumer products are going more and more niche. But what you're saying is because of the social position like a transgender person might be in, the smarter thing for them to do politically was to include them in the mass market product.
Yes.
Whereas everybody else is trying to get out of the mass market product.
For them though, there's such a huge there's such a huge company that it would make sense to be inclusive for that
Mhm.
that
Well, and specifically on those products, I mean, I think you would probably find that a large percentage of transgender persons are looking to not draw attention to the fact that they're transgender. They simply want to
That's a
be
good point,
identified
yeah.
with the gender that they identify with. So if you take a pack of razors to the checkout, you just want it to be a pack of razors. You don't want it to be the Gillette transgender edition like razors.
Yeah, good point. What about the women's piece of it? Like they took the women's sign off of the tampons, and they literally tweeted like not everybody who menstruates is a what. It was like not all women menstruate, and not everyone who menstruates is a woman.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
was like the edgy thing they tweeted when they did it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of blown out of proportion. I think the amount of people who are pissed off are not as severe as they made it seem. Like I know we discussed earlier that like one person tweeted about it, but we're talking about the amount of people who consume Procter and Gamble products, and it was literally one person who tweeted. But then on the flip side,
Well, it was the one person who tweeted that caused them to remove the
Right.
symbol.
Yeah.
right. But then on the flip side, everyone is all up in arms that they removed it, and it's like, are you actually that mad? And would you have noticed otherwise if it were not there? It's one of those people want to be outraged.
right. They want to get mad about stuff. So they pick things, and especially on
It's like the American pastime.
Yes, especially on Twitter. They
It's
posted
definitely
that
not baseball anymore.
that edgy tweet on Twitter, and they expected a response to it. I mean, but it is that Twitter audience that is going to respond. I don't know outside of that people would really care.
Tell me this: did you guys, if you got a bloody nose, did you ever use a tampon or not use it because it had a female logo?
No, I
on
never
the
had
valve?
a tampon in
in
my
fact,
nose.
when
Oh, you
I
never. Okay.
no, I've never put one in my nose, but when I had my wisdom teeth
This is
taken
gonna be
out,
an interesting clip.
the dental surgeon told me that one of the best things to
Yeah.
do when they took the packing out was just cut an unscented tampon in half and bite down on either side, and it was
They're
soaked with the
super
blood.
Shove the
Absorbent.
cotton in your mouth. Yeah.
They're super absorbent.
Yeah.
So did it stop you from doing that because it had the
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, plus I was on pain medication, so I didn't really care. I want to interject something that I think is related to this. In my opinion, part of this whole outrage culture, I think the media is largely responsible for, and I don't think that's a controversial take. I think everyone to some degree can agree with that. But I think that the embeddable tweet is one of the largest contributors to problems in the United States today. I think the fact that you can embed a tweet in a news story is responsible for more misinterpretation of mass opinion than just about
Because you
anything
just take
else.
8 tweets of 8 angry people.
So
and put
what
them
you
in the
see
story.
is whether it's, George Takei's like 4 blogs that he pretends like are news outlets that he actually owns and makes ad revenue from, whether it's CNN, whether it's anybody in between, all you need are 5 or 6 tweets that represent the opinion you want to put in the article, and you can embed those tweets and make it seem like there is a just large population that is shouting this from the
Like a
rooftops. Instead, out of 1,000 tweets, you pulled 6 of them out and embedded them in an article. The embedded tweet is the most dangerous thing to outrage culture that has ever existed.
That's an interesting take on it.
I mean, just out of curiosity, I don't know that I've noticed this, but is like CNN and New York Times and other news sources using that
Yes.
as
Yeah.
sources?
Yes.
Okay.
The embeddable tweet is popular for basically every news service on the planet at this point. They are using it in place of
it creates the
images.
controversy.
Yeah, they are using it as content in the story as opposed to even screenshotting it. The fact that they can take a little code snippet and actually embed the tweet only furthers the outrage, because then you can click right to the tweet if you disagree with it and just rage right back at this person.
And-
so all these outlets are just throwing gasoline on the outrage.
In
fire.
our politics of branding research, one of the things that we have there is that cycle that these stories go through. And the first part of the cycle, the controversy for brands, it ends up not being anything they did. The controversy is usually the outrage, and
Yep.
usually on Twitter.
Yep.
So the story they get sucked into is a story about 10 people who are angry on Twitter, and then that creates the mainstream story. So what usually happens is the tweets get embedded in a niche media, so in a HuffPo or something like that. Then the New York Times picks it up, or
Yeah.
then Fox News picks it up.
And look, nobody's getting banned from Twitter for the first tweet in a thread, right? People are getting banned from Twitter
On the responses
for the
Yeah.
30th tweet in a thread where they're going back and forth with somebody specific and they make a
Banned.
threat or an insult or something that violates Twitter's terms. It's not the original tweet that ever makes it into the problem set.
So my closer on this, and we'll move to the next one, is I think like the game we're watching and the game that's being played. The game we're watching is the like gender equality kind of woke messaging. I think the game that's actually being played by Procter and Gamble and the strategy is knowing that if they did that, they would get attention, and in the market they've been in where they're losing market share to direct to consumer and other things on the shelf, that this was a highly effective way for them to recapture cultural relevance.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking about it. That's
Yeah.
Like, we spend a long time talking about it.
Yeah.
Not
And
just
Of
here,
Record
yeah.
is the pinnacle of cultural relevance.
Yeah,
as
so
we
we're talking to-
established
so
at the top
they've
of this
won.
episode. Yeah.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Procter and Gamble.
I mean, they've won just from product placement. Except
That's
for
true.
Lysol.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the largest advertiser in the world, so they probably know a little bit about this.
Yes.
All right. Last item. So, state of millennials. eMarketer put out a report. U.S. millennials 2020. So, how's that adulting thing going?
Not well.
Terribly.
Not well. Bad. So, millennials right now are 24 to 39 years old. So I think everybody in here is a millennial, and
I'm on the cusp.
so you're at the upper end of this.
Yes, so I'm
I'm
on
a-
the cusp of Gen X millennial.
Yeah. Kyle, you're down in the 20-25 range. Rebecca, you're just
26.
a little older, and Matt and I. So we don't have been in the late 20s in here, but we have a pretty good spread. So I'll just kind of run through the summary findings of this. Millennials use a heck of a lot of digital media and streaming, but they have stopped being the early adopters of new technologies. That has fallen to the Gen Zers. So we are not on TikTok and we're not on any of the other new interesting stuff coming out. We are still heavily on Facebook. 89% of millennials have a Facebook account. So despite complaining about it, we really haven't moved off of it. So our habits, our media consumption habits have solidified, and streaming is a big part of that. The second piece is we own less than 3% of the total household wealth in the country for the generation. So we've acquired remarkably little wealth. Part of that is student debt. That's a defining characteristic of the generation, according to the report. One of the other signals in millennials is been late development.
Mhm.
So
They don't buy
millennials-
houses quickly.
Yep.
Yep.
but they're starting to buy houses, and they're starting to buy houses in the suburbs, not just the cities. Their preferences are a little different for the type of suburbs.
Man, you mean we no longer live in mom's basement?
Uh,
Boomers
so-
love that one.
So it is the largest group for living at home with parents still at, I think it was 23% live at home. And then the last thing that I thought was interesting is online shopping is an ingrained habit, and also deferred family formation. So family formation is starting, but it's starting later in life.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a roundup of millennials. I just want to go get everybody's take on millennial one. Like, what do you think, like, generationally, kind of the state is good, bad, about the same as prior generations? And then what do you think the takeaway is for marketers for selling to millennials who are entering their prime buying ages right now, their prime earnings, prime buying?
I mean, something that's interesting to me about the millennial generation is it was the generation that was most likely to be an early adopter when the internet really gained its traction, right? So boomers were already adults when the internet came around. Obviously, any senior generations were well established when the internet came around. But the younger generations have never known anything except the internet being widely available and popular and pretty fast. So millennials are still a generation where they were considered the early adopters as the internet was taking off, but still had to experience AOL Instant Messenger and in some cases dial-up, or maybe using Microsoft Encarta on their family computer to look up something.
Oh, Encarta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before the internet was your database to everything around the world.
Yeah, I had this
instantly.
Sports Illustrated CD-ROM in like '94
Love it.
that would let me like look up sports stats.
Yeah.
I had to put it in the computer to like 10 minutes to load.
I was super interested in dinosaurs, so I just used Encarta to look up like every possible kind of dinosaur.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the idea of brand loyalty is still a thing. Millennials are, you're saying, sticking to some of the same platforms that they've been using now. They're not as much early adopters. They're sticking to some of the same things that they've been doing. They're starting to get a little more set in their ways, which is kind of what we talked about with boomers and Gen X, that we were really brand loyal. And so I think everyone kind of moves in that direction eventually.
Yeah, and picked a lot of different brands.
Yeah.
Like, Procter & Gamble's a good, when the preference of my parents and grandparents was always for like, what is the name brand? Because that thing is trusted. The preference from millennials increasingly is like, what is the authentic thing? Like, what is like the best in class
Yeah.
for whatever it is? And so a willingness to try new products, and that's led to an emergence of new product loyalties.
Right, but then they stick with it.
Yeah.
They don't move or deviate from it as much as we keep thinking that they might.
Yeah. It's hard to get them off of it once they make the
Which
decision.
it might be one of the explainers between the kind of the peaking of direct to consumer right
Mhm.
now and the struggles that's happening, because you had this time period when you could sell millennials on adopting new products. They've now been exposed for 5 or 6 years to a ton of new products, and like they're set. They now know they have this thing. It works. They're not as interested about moving off of it.
So
or
the
they do more research before they
Yes,
commit. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, so one thing I would say is that because of the late development or late adaptation in some cases of typical life choices or habits for millennials, I do think there's still a wide open space in advertising for companies to get to millennials because they're making life decisions later. So, for example, Joe, in the last year, you have had a child.
Baby industrial complex.
My
bro.
child will be coming in the next 2 weeks, but I would argue that the baby industrial complex is more wide open than it has ever been, right? Like 15 years ago, you were going to buy Pampers, Huggies, or Loves.
Oh yeah.
Right? There was no honest company diapers getting shipped to your door from
And the
Amazon.
toys are gonna be at
Subscribe
Play
and
School.
save.
Like the toy thing we have is Melissa and Doug, and they make wooden toys.
Yep.
That's all I got is those Melissa and Doug
Yep.
stuff.
So I mean,
Yeah.
great example. You know, my parents' generation had children mostly in like their late 20s, right? Like by the time they were 30, they had already at least started, but mostly completed their family. I'm 33 and just now starting to have children. So there's decisions that my parents made in some cases 10 years before I made them. So I'm making decisions now on which bottle to buy, which diaper brand to buy. And I think now because of the internet, there's a whole new range, not even necessarily just of product options, but of product research available,
Yeah.
right? So like Gerber doesn't have much brand power with me at this point, right? I'm going to research what the best baby food, maybe we'll make our own baby food, right? Like there are a lot of options.
I think everybody tries that for like a week.
Yeah. But do you have any loyalty to Gerber?
No, I have no loyalty to
Yeah.
any baby industrial complex brand.
Right. That's my point here is some of those long-staying brands don't
once-
have the power.
But once you try something
And you
and
like it,
works,
you're
well,
going to
not
stick
even,
with it.
Not even if you like it. If it works for
If
the
it
baby,
works, yes.
you're gonna stick with it.
Yep.
Whatever works, and that's the interesting thing there. You're gonna try everything that works to help keep your baby calm and
Mhm.
not cry.
Yep.
And then that's what you're gonna stick with. And even that might change. So then you'll have to change too.
Right, but also completely open to trying any brand of something that works for the baby, not just it has to be Pampers or Huggies
Right.
or one of like the official baby brands.
I mean, I would almost say millennials are more skeptical if it's a big brand now. Now we're like, oh, they probably have unethical practices and they
I mean, the
probably
Honest
don't
Company's
contribute back.
diaper sell point is that it's like mostly plant-based materials, that they don't add chemicals. So, I mean, I 100%
My baby
agree
has a
with
Right.
that.
lettuce diaper.
And I feel like for the price you're paying, if it's a big name brand, you probably don't think you're getting the highest quality product. Like I
Yes,
feel
I would
like
agree with
now
that.
I'm like, oh, I want something more organic. I feel like it's just more.
So, and I
higher
think that's
quality.
an interesting marketing perspective, right? Is previous generations would be like, I want something reliable.
Mm.
Like, I want to know when I open the bag, when I open the box, like what's going to come out of it. And what has happened with millennials, and this is interesting being that they have overall less wealth than prior generations, is the preferences for quality. Now, I think part of that is because they realize that you can get roughly the same quality for only marginally more money or oftentimes the same price because you have additional shopping power now.
Mhm.
It's not just what's on the store shelf, low, medium, high quality.
Right.
So from a marketing perspective, I think the authenticity and the quality angle are huge.
Well, I also think part of it too is consuming less. Like you buy higher quality things so that you don't have to replace it as frequently.
Yeah.
And so then you actually end up spending less money over time, but that's why the suppliers end up having to charge more because less people are buying.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty clear, right? The overall quality of the product that I have in my house is significantly higher than what my parents had in the house. Even like the furniture, right? I think we went through this period in the 90s and early 2000s where there was so much. You disagree?
I disagree on at least some categories, right? Like now the expected lifespan of a washing machine or a refrigerator is significantly
Oh,
less than it
interesting.
was
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s.
TVs too.
So-
Yeah, I think
Televisions,
it
yeah.
depends on the category for
So-
sure.
It does.
But
I
the
think-
non-durable or the non-durable product has a longer lifespan now.
I think machinery, the quality has gone down.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
durable
like
products.
anything that requires machine, because the way they used to make it, it'll last you literally. It'll outlast you as
So
a person.
is there an angle to sell millennials on washers, dryers, refrigerators, microwaves that are 20% more expensive, but with a reputation for long-lasting quality?
Oh, that's what we bought. We when we purchased a washer and dryer, we wanted a simple machine. We didn't want any of the fancy gizmos because those are known to be. It makes it more prone to breaking, and we didn't want the fancy glass top that you can look
Not the
in
one
at
that
your
looks like a space
yeah,
capsule.
that your clothes are just spinning and you just get mesmerized by watching it because
They
if something
spinning.
falls on it, then you have to replace the whole glass out. So ours are incredibly industrial looking because we spent 3 hours at the store asking them like what has the least chance of breaking. Yeah,
But is
But
it
furniture-
is it a big brand?
Maytag.
Maytag.
Yeah,
Okay.
so a big brand.
Yeah.
But interesting, like not a big brand that you would consider being widely popular with millennials, right?
Yeah.
It's not a Samsung or an LG washing machine and dryer. Like
Yeah.
it's a legacy brand that was coming out for a long time of just Sears and like major appliance retailers. So I mean, I do think there's some green space there for legacy brands to get back in and sell the quality of their
So
product.
that's interesting because selling to boomers is what drove those washer dryers to look like space capsules.
Mhm.
Because boomers wanted buttons and knobs and options and higher end, and it seems like selling to millennials is driving those durable goods back down to like a baseline for reliability.
Yeah.
It's really
Right.
sad that we just skip over Gen X over and over again.
Well, this is not the state of Gen X.
No, I know.
But I think it's a different
Gen X
conversation.
can have their own episode.
I think it's a different conversation when you discuss
the middle
machinery
child
and then you discuss furniture. Because I think furniture, I remember as a child, I'd be like, Mom, I want a new bed. I'm like going into my teens. I need to get rid of this childhood bed. And she was like, yeah, let's go to Kmart and pick out a frame. And at the time, like, I didn't really think, I was like, okay, sounds good. And I found one I liked. But like now we're like Kmart, Walmart is low quality furniture.
But they don't sell as much furniture. If you go into a big store like that, there's not a lot of furniture because
Right.
Amazon.
Yeah. So people have stopped consuming it. It's like lower quality. So when you're saying that the stuff you have in your house now is higher quality than our parents, that's what I'm saying. Like our parents were like, yeah, let's just go to like the big box store and
Yeah.
pick out something you like for furniture. And we're,
And well,
Yeah,
that
I
was the
think-
only option. Or as a
Yes.
high-end furniture
Yeah.
store or department store.
yeah, it was
Right.
either like Ashley's or Haverty's. Or
I think I was thinking more about clothing, really,
Mhm.
because clothing purchases. When I think about how I buy clothes, I'm actually willing to spend more because I think it's going to last longer,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to have to replace it as frequently. So I
Yep.
think I was thinking more about clothing and
I
like,
think that's fair.
shoes and things like that.
Can it survive 300 washes and
Yeah.
still be pretty bright and not, unraveling?
Well, and the secondhand market. This report also has some stats on reselling by millennials, and millennials are also the most likely to do online reselling.
Yes.
So once you have a product,
Which
you are
ties in lovely to our episode about Poshmark.
yeah.
If you haven't listened to it, you should.
All right. Any closers on state of millennials? What do you think the next 10 years look like as millennials age through their 30s and 40s?
I think we see more shoppers' guilt. And I feel like that's the state we're in now that our parents didn't suffer from is I feel immense shoppers' guilt on the quality of products I'm buying.
Like overconsumption.
Like I feel bad even thinking about walking into a Forever 21 because I know how poor of quality it is and like the working
Mhm.
conditions that the people who create those clothes are. And I don't think that's something our parents had to worry about. So I think that's going to just increase.
I can see that. I also think that brands are going to start moving into explaining more about where they get their product, how they make their product, what they're doing with it afterwards if you send it back, or having the option to send it back and replace it, having these like reusable options and sustainable options.
Mhm.
I think it's going to move in that direction.
I think technology has changed the marketplace, not in just terms of prices or like options available, but also now a brand has to consider method of delivery, right? So it wasn't an option 15 years ago that you were going to buy a king size mattress and have it shipped by the United States Postal Service and show up on your front door, right? You went to a mattress store, you went to a big box store, picked out the mattress and box spring you liked, and at some point that week, the delivery truck brought it over and set it up at your house. That's not the case anymore. Technology has enabled us not only to have new products, better products, or more advanced products, but also just to have new methods of accepting those products that were not available 15, 20 years ago, right? Before, you had to go to the store to buy these Clorox wipes. You had to go to Target to get your Lysol disinfectant spray or your diapers or the grocery store or wherever you're going to go. Now they all show up on your front door. So method of delivery now matters a huge portion of your decision. But before, the decision for getting something delivered was size based, right? Like it has to be small enough to make sense to deliver. The only exception was going to be something high end like furniture, which came on its own delivery truck. Now that has been basically thrown out the door.
Yeah. So I agree. I mean, I agree with what everybody said. I think selling to millennials as they age is going to look a lot more like selling to our grandparents or great grandparents at their age because they'll be more financially constrained than probably our parents were as an average. And so you're going to be selling to somebody who's not looking for a disposable product. They're going to be looking in general for a product that's going to serve the household for an extended period of time and have relatively high expectations for how that product is manufactured and delivered and serviced.
I think we still haven't hit critical mass of older generations, particularly like boomers, who in the past have not been forced to replace things as often. So it is okay with a fixed income to not have to do that. I think we're coming to a cliff where retired or older boomers are going to have to replace washing machines every 3 to 4 years. They can't have the same washing machine for 30 years, and it makes a much greater impact on a fixed income than it does somebody who's still working.
Oh, so you'll see them start to sub down too.
Yep. Well, I think it's just, I think it's going to be a big problem, right? Like their television stops working or their washing machine or their dishwasher doesn't last as long. And now all of a sudden they have to replace $600, $700, $1,200 items on a speed at which no generation before them has had to do, right? Like my grandfather, up until the day he died, was using a washing machine that was 30 years old.
Yeah. Well, look, I think they'll get lucky in that you have the millennial market pushing for the more reliable stuff. And so, like, their next purchase will be more reliable.
Yeah, maybe.
I think laundromats are going to resurge.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
Lipa's advice: invest in laundromats.
Yes.
Low overhead business.
Keep coins handy.
Quality washers.
No, it'll be
No, I
paid
think
for
it's
on
like
an app.
Apple Pay.
Oh yeah, no, you need an Apple
Apple
Pay
Pay.
laundromat
Oh,
for sure.
that's a good one. Like a high-tech laundromat that isn't creepy.
Yes.
Like the
Ooh.
parking meters that you do now, where you
That's
just put the
this one,
code
yeah.
of the one you're using.
And then you
Mhm.
don't have to
Cool.
have change because change is kind of gross.
Change will give you
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus, yeah.
You got to make it so you don't have to be there the whole time. So you have to have your phone to like unlock the washer dryer.
Mhm.
You spray Matt with Lysol. We got to go. Brecca's Lysoling Matt's head.
Coronavirus.
Very scary. All right. As always, we appreciate you listening. We'll be back next week for the latest in marketing, advertising, and culture news. Thanks for stopping by. Remember, if you only listen to this episode, you can check out the full video of the episode on the Of Record YouTube page. And also make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you next week. Thanks.